You are listening to another AlwaysMoto production. The AlwaysMoto podcast with your host, David Hogan. We talk moto events from around the world. All the injuries, all the training ins and outs, the bikes, parts and gear inspections. The results, we interview your favourite riders. It's the AlwaysMoto podcast. We occasionally have some coarse language and the odd stuff up along the way. If you don't like it or you don't agree with us, turn it off right now.
I'd like to remind you that he is not a doctor.
That's right, Moto fans. This is episode 165 of the AlwaysMoto podcast, proudly brought to you by TechnicMotorsport.com. As always, I'm your host, David Hogan, the physiotherapist who knows the injuries and fitness needs of our sport of motocross and supercross. We're going to go through everything and anything moto here because everything is always moto here on the AlwaysMoto network. This week's show, we review everything from round 3 at the Boost Mobile Australian Supercross Championship presented by Monster Energy. And we're going to have the AlwaysMoto contractor join us to do so. And here he is right now, Ben Grinly. How we doing? I've stuffed up straight off the top. I've been interrupted by a phone call. I got thrown off my vibe already.
I know what you haven't had today, and that's a Monster can. We're mucking it up already. Monster on the brain.
Look, yeah, the Monster was on the brain there. I haven't had any caffeine as such today, but yes, I did get another one in the pits at Cronulla. Thank you, Monster. I feel like we're standing there for 10 seconds, and that girl that was in the back of the Monster Ute just broke through and goes, "Do you want one?" I was like, "I was just waiting for you to ask, love."
Yeah, they had the ute there, 2 eskies full, and everyone was enjoying a cold Monster, but not many flavors though.
I think I only had like 4 or something that time. The ones in Redcliffe, they had plenty more, but yeah. Anyway, Monster on the brain. But yes, we're going to talk about obviously the round 3 at Cronulla there. We've also got an interview. We've got our freshly off his first ever podium in SX3 Supercross. It is Riley Burgess. We've got an interview with him, which we'll play at the end of the show. It's pre-recorded, so we'll finish out with that. But yeah, let's get straight into this show and all those bits and pieces that go along with it. Obviously, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Technic Motorsport. Now, they are your suspension go-to for anything KYB and Showa. They are the Australian distributor. They have genuine seals, wipers, bushes, and other consumable parts to go with anything you need for those forks and shocks. If you want to purchase from them, you need to head over to TechnicMotorsport.com. They have a currency converter on their website. They have a shipping calculator on the website. They ship daily with DHL to most countries, so you can get it from anywhere, not just in Australia. You just need to head to TechnicMotorsport.com. But don't forget our other sponsors. We've got Dura Moose on board. Now, I am going to unbox some Dura Mooses here very, very shortly. And I'm going to fit them up to my Sherco Motorcycles Australia bike and get out on some new moose, my current mooses. Enduro people know what I'm talking about, Benny, when I say this, but I'm riding on a dead moose so far in the recent couple of weeks. That Enduro cross that I did the demonstration lap on was made just that slightly bit harder by a dead moose in the front end. So anyway, we're going to get some new mooses, some living mooses in the front from Duramoose. So we'll be checking those out shortly. We've got a discount code for those. You can check that out in the show notes on the bio. But also Pivot Pegs, Competitive Edge Performance, and Tech 167 3D Printing. They are all on board with the show. We've got our AlwaysMoto t-shirts available to buy as well. They're $25 plus postage and handling. That's this one. Not the new fancy one that Benny's got on at the moment. We fitted him out last weekend when we caught up finally in person. Yep, look at that. Proud and loud and proud.
Yep.
And then, yeah, of course, if you want to buy one of these t-shirts, you can get it at info@alwaysmoto.com. You just need to email us and you're $25. We'll get that payment via PayPal. Now, PayPal, you can also donate to us directly to support the show. All of those links to do that is in our show notes or in the bio on our social pages. So head there to check that out. There's also discount codes from our sponsors as well. So check that out as well. But, Benny, it's time to talk Cronulla, round 3. Boost Mobile Monster Boost Boost Mobile Australian Supercross Championship presented by Monster Energy. I'll get it right eventually, probably by the time the series is over. But it was at Cronulla. Now let's start off with the event itself. Very well attended in terms of crowd. The Cronulla venue, Shark Park as it's known, I would say that was probably just as busy as they've ever seen it, even for that NRL final they had a couple of weeks back. Can't have put too many more people in that venue.
Yeah, and it really started sort of early in the day. If you've been to that stadium, you'll know at the back side of it, there is a fence there along the footpath. And that footpath and fence was pretty much lined from as soon as the bikes hit the track, and then right into the night where there wasn't many empty seats in that stadium. So I'd say that they may be pretty happy with that turnout, and it's good for the sport.
Yeah, 100%. Like I don't think, if you look back at like Wollongong and Newcastle and now Cronulla, those New South Wales rounds in recent years have been pretty well attended. And even if we go to Redcliffe night 1, ignore night 2 because of the night 2s always seem to be a little bit meh on attendance rates. But each time we go for that one-off event, they are well-attended events. Now, that tells me that we need to have more of them, not necessarily double headers, because obviously the double header attendance hasn't been great at Redcliffe. But maybe we talked about this before, if they tweak a few things for the second day in terms of track and whatnot, they might spruik an interest. But so far, that tells me that a 5-round series is being sustainable, and we need to go bigger in terms of more rounds in future years. And they were sort of hinting at that. I don't know if you heard this throughout the day as we were wandering around doing photos and stuff and some of the commentary from the ground that was going on, but they were sort of hinting at that in some of those comments. But I feel like we need to be aiming for like an 8-round series, because already we're only essentially 2 race venues in to this championship and we're past halfway.
Yeah, the amount of times we heard, in our group chat over the weekend that, it's already halfway done. And people, they're sort of like, well, there's only, 2 rounds left and it's all over. So, definitely needs to be a bit bigger. And even if that does mean, double up rounds in the same state at different times, then so be it. But we definitely need more races than just 1 and 2 in Redcliffe, and then the rest how they are. There definitely needs to be more.
Yeah, like I think in terms of like the Queensland or the New South Wales or even Victoria side of things, like if you did something where you went like, if you kept Redcliffe as the opener and then you went something like somewhere around that Coffs Harbour sort of point, right? Where you partway through, and then if you went to like Sydney or Wollongong for your other round in the state of New South Wales, and then you've got your Marvel. I don't know where else in Melbourne you'd put it, but there's got to be another venue sort of an hour or 2 out of the CBD that would fit in the same sort of vein of a Redcliffe. And then if we got Adelaide with the supercars, and if we can then find something else in there, I'm sure we can make this out to it. And even if we go back to the idea that we had previously in a few years back where they had the New Zealand race, they had I think it was Auckland or something, wasn't it? Auckland or Wellington, one of those two, where they created this Oceania Championship. If they brought that back into it, I think we could have a really impressive, championship here. We're just a couple of rounds short at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, in Melbourne, you've got Marvel. You've also, you could go to Amy Park. Whether Amy Park wants us there or not, who knows? But 2 different styled stadiums, even though they both are in Melbourne. But yeah, like you said, going to New Zealand wouldn't be, that wouldn't be too bad. They've done it before. I'd say there'd be a big presence of people turn up to that round because they don't get much Supercross over there. So yeah, there's definitely places we could go. They just need to work it out, and I guess grab information and see how the riders feel about it as well. See what they are thinking.
Yeah, I know they're not going to just jump from 5 to 8 rounds, but I think 8 is our money maker point, and we've got to do it in a way that we tighten up this series, this break that we've got now. is not great in terms of having the Americans go home and go back and train. It's obviously good for them, but it's also a chance where they potentially have an issue, an injury, or their teams can say, hey, you're not doing well enough in the series, you're not going back for the remaining part of the championship. But it also means same thing for the Aussie guys. There's a chance that the Aussie guys can have an issue whilst they're practicing and then not make the final few rounds. And we already have limited number of people that are entering this series. We need to tighten it up. And we need to also give them a bigger window to work for Supercross practice. And this is starting to get into that Luke Clout idea that's being thrown around. Benny, I'm sure you've heard this one in the pits and on those interviews with him in the pre-shows where he's saying that we're not having a long enough pre-season as Aussies to practice the Supercross. But it would give them, if they had 8 rounds, it would give them more reason to practice for longer. If they worked the motocross series a little earlier, tightened it up a little bit, it'd make this just, give them that sort of, he said, I think it was his ideal point was 10 weeks. If we did that, finished the motocross earlier, got this series through into 8 rounds and done still through that October, November, maybe 1 week into December or thereabouts, this could be really massive.
Yeah, and that was a big talking point at the press conference with the training times and whatnot. But this break has also given him the opportunity to go overseas and race some Supercross, where the US boys are just going home. He's actually going to race, so that could benefit him. It could not. More than likely, it will. But yeah, it might. Come Melbourne, might make a bit of a difference, but you can, I guess, look at it 2 ways: as they get to go home and see their family, but then the Australian boys also, get a break or can go and race other races. Yeah,
but I know I'm the guy that talks about injuries and stuff, and that they can happen at any time. But the going and racing somewhere different on a different machine, I know it's still potentially going to be a Cowie for Luke Clout, but how bad does this series look, and how bad is it for Empire Kawasaki if he goes away and does that other race? Who have they got returning, in that place if something happens to Luke Clout whilst he's over there in Germany and then Paris? Like, yeah, we need to give them a reason to stay here and not go look elsewhere. They're going looking elsewhere because there's no prize money, or there is prize money, but there's not enough prize money that warrants them to stay here. Then they can go and make more elsewhere. Hence the whole, couple of guys going to India this past week and missing the Cronulla round. We need to make it more worth their while, I guess is the terminology. And then also the teams worth their while to invest in the series further, give the riders more time, all that sort of stuff. So, we'll wrap up that part of the conversation, but that's where this is at. We need to build on this. The crowds are supporting us through these opening couple of rounds. So we need to give them more. Yeah?
Yep.
All right. Awesome. All right. Next part of this. In terms of the venue itself, the track that they built in there, I actually was pretty impressed with it. It rode pretty well. It seemed to be challenging enough. It looked a lot better in terms of how the guys were getting challenged and racing compared to Redcliffe. I don't know what was massively different about that. Obviously, the dirt plays a big role in that. But I just felt the track was actually a bit beefier and just, like I said, just a bit better all around. Benny, you weren't at Redcliffe. You watched it on TV, but did you have a similar feeling, or did you just think that the track was, just better all around because we were in Sydney sort of thing?
Yeah, I think it was sort of, it seemed a bit more technical. Friday press day wasn't great.
We'll get to that.
in the dust. But yeah, I think it was similar to Wollongong, sort of how that track turned out, and it's just I think Redcliffe was just a little bit plain, and then not switching it up for day 2. It's sort of watching a lot of the same racing on the same track, but in the end, I think it was a lot better.
Yeah, no, definitely was a lot better. But yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. I was going to bring it up a little bit later, but let's talk about it now because you brought it up. Press day. Holy smoke, what are we doing with press day, people? We had a triple and that was it in Redcliffe. This time we had 2 rhythm lanes, which is great. We had something that the guys could get into. Potentially it was worth their while to get geared up because they can learn part of the track, so that's awesome. But they didn't put a drop of water on it. Now, literally they were a minute in and the place was a dust bowl. And then all of us photographers are there struggling to get a decent shot because there's dust everywhere, and basically making those promo images the day before the event that are trying to bring in those last few ticket sales, and even, you know, people to see it on TV, to sign up, they go on to KO and make it worth KO's while for having us on there. It makes it look like a terrible production at that point. So we've got to get our track builds done quicker or have more time to get it done so that the track can be basically ready completely by the time press day kicks off at like that 10, 11 o'clock point on a Friday. Because we can't keep having these schmozzles of press day riding aspects. We need to have better imagery of the track, of the riders, whether it's because they're doing different sections of the track or because they can actually see the rider because it's not dusty. That was a bad look, Benny, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I don't think that it didn't get a lot of water that side of the track all weekend. The truck couldn't get to it, and I don't know if the hose really reached to that point because come the afternoon and night show, it was still pretty dusty over there, but the rest of the track wasn't too bad. But when press day riding's finished and we go to do some interviews, and you say to me, did you go out riding because I had that much dust on my face? That, that sort of tells you the story.
Yeah, you had the full like dust tan line around the sunglasses like you get when you've worn your goggles on track. Like fair income, it was that bad. And we were just standing there watching. We weren't in the middle of it. So, yeah, look, it wasn't great. And then obviously those things then impact if we've got dust coming out of a venue in a city, that dust is going into the shopping centre next door. Then the shoppers are complaining. The shop owners are complaining. In Redcliffe, it was going on to the beer garden area that was open at the back of the RSL or whatever it is there, the leagues club there. That stuff can't happen for us because that's what kicks us out of these sorts of venues, because they're already a little bit worried about us bringing all this dirt in, and then the noise, and then the sort of your motocross people, your bikies, So these are things we can control in terms of watering a track to make everybody as happy as they can be and comfortable as they can be with us there. They missed the mark on that one, which is disappointing. And like I said, we just need press days to be better generally, because it's got to present how this is going to look the next night. We don't want to look terrible. We want it to look pretty and inviting, right?
Yeah, that's right. And, we can't be making a mess and then expecting there to be no problems in trying to go back.
No. So what about the venue itself, Benny? Did you like the fact, one, we were in Cronulla, and two, just the overall football stadium and pits and parking? What do you think on it?
I didn't like the wind. That's the first thing I'll say. The wind was pretty bad through that stadium all weekend. Wasn't too bad.
I find it funny the riders said that they didn't like Wollongong because it was windy. So let's go to Cronulla, another coastal football stadium, and we'll be fine. No, we had exactly the same conditions, I would have thought.
Yeah, and, it wasn't too bad, over the road, which we'll get into in a minute, but definitely through that stadium area, the wind was, blowing pretty well Friday and Saturday. The pits, we sort of touched on it last week, and now actually having done it, walk, 150.
Yeah. So hold on a second. The pits themselves, the size, the flat grassed area, fantastic. The location of the pits, go on, Benny, carry on with your comments.
And yeah, so what did we have to? I think it was about 150 meters. Walk down to the traffic light, press the button. Very busy road, might I add. Wait for that, which took forever. Then cross over. Then either go left or right another same amount of distance to get into the pits, depending on what end you wanted to go into. Like, I know us walking was a bit annoying, but can you imagine having to push bikes and get riders and, all these little 65 Yamaha kids across the road? It looks like, looks like a school group going with a teacher on either end. That's not ideal.
Look, it's not ideal. I guess maybe if you look at it from the other side of the coin, AME's probably going, it's advertising the event because all of a sudden all these cars that didn't know what's going on, there's a whole bunch of bikes rolling across the pedestrian crossing. They're going to go, oh, why? What's happening? I doubt that's really worth that, but yeah, I think I prefer a different venue that allowed us to have a pits joined just for the access and easeability of everything for the teams, the riders, the press, all that sort of stuff. Because the other aspect of this too is that like the way that the trucks were set up, one side of the main, the main team trucks was onto the public footpath, and anyone, if they left any of those side doors open on their trucks, anyone could grab anything out of that truck and wander off with it. So, from a security point of view, it's a bit difficult. When they're in, when they were in Wollongong, they're all in that entertainment centre. In previous years in Wollongong, they parked the trucks on the actual practice field out the back. It's all one complex. I feel like that's a better option, but maybe they just got Cronulla at a nice rate and that's why they did it. I don't know, but look, I'm not going to say I don't want to go back to Cronulla, but I wouldn't be disappointed if we went somewhere different that had a better pit setup. But maybe we're here in Cronulla for a couple of years. Who knows? It wasn't all bad. I just, would have preferred it to be attached.
Yeah, the pit party was, if you're just the general, consumer going in, having a look, the pit party was brilliant. Spread out. There's plenty of stuff for the kids to do, plenty of giveaways, things to, Monster had some, the throw the beanbag into the wooden board.
Cornhole.
Yeah, cornhole. Yep, that's it. And, basketball things from the boost people. Like there was heaps to do, heaps to see. I'm not sure. It could have been on the opposite side of the road down a bit where all the event parking was. You could probably switch those two up so you're not crossing the road at least. But yeah, that's what we had, and that's what we had to, that's what we had to go with.
Yeah, look, the pit, like you said, the pit party and stuff, all the activations were cool. I wanted to, I wouldn't mind if we had a chance next if they got it again, but I wouldn't mind having to go on one of those kids' electric bikes and sending the freestyle ramp down the airbag landing they had set up. Oh, that looked cool. But they probably got like a weight limit on those things, so I was probably out,
Yeah, and it's, I don't know if, obviously there's kids out there that will get on the electric bikes and do that at home. But, for me to see kids doing that in person just sort of makes me feel a bit little then. I can't do anything like that. My skill levels don't let me do things like that.
Yeah, no, look, they had some cool stuff there just to be able to do. So that was the whole aspect of what's going on at the moment. That pit party's gotten heaps better compared to previous years. The attendance has gotten heaps better. I think our track builds are getting better. We just need to tighten up a few areas, and we'll be gold. But yeah, we're getting there. So that's the main part in all of this. I think it's actually getting pretty good. The parking situation worked out all right in the end, but that was a bit of a last minute, stuff around that we got involved in there as well. But yeah, good that they had that parking and that it was free as far as I'm aware. Like that field parking there worked out okay. So that was all right. Let's get to the racing, but let's get to the main part of this. I think the racing was actually really good on the evening. There was, a fair bit of excitement. We obviously had a bit of a issue with the penalty for Dino in the final main there of the night, but it got overturned later on, as the result probably should have suggested from the way Dino's been riding. So, look, SX1, obviously Dean Wilson from Luke Clout from Supercross. Dino's on another level, isn't he? I actually got a question here that I wrote down, and I think it's interesting to ask, but if it wasn't for next round being the Oz X Open and not just an Australian Supercross Championship round, but the Oz X Open where they invite all the internationals and our homecoming Lawrence heroes, would Dino be going undefeated in this championship if not for that? Or does he still potentially do that?
I think you've got I think Adelaide would be the deciding factor. From what we saw last year, that track was a bit small, a bit tight, and it caused a fair few problems. I think up until that, I think, yes, he would go undefeated. But I think that track's just, and depending on what it ends up like this year, but I think if it was anything like last year, I think that would be the telling track that would either make it or break it.
Yeah, that's probably a fair point, actually, Benny. I hadn't thought of that. That track was rather small, tight, and if you got a decent start, and Dino got a bad start, he could get bumped out of it, and yeah, that could have changed things. So yes, there is that factor still at play. But the reason I asked that is because the way he was riding on Saturday night in Cronulla was pretty dominant, and just nobody's on his level in the whoops. And so even like Luke Clout's running a fantastic speed at this point. He can get, obviously he got fastest qualifier on the weekend. Dino actually got bit stuffed around with a crashed rider and, on one of his hot laps that he tried to do. So potentially could have been different. But yeah, Clout is good on a single lap and not seem to be able to hold pace that high over the entire main event. But Dino can at the moment, and just that whoop speed, he's just got a skill that nobody else seems to have here in this championship right now.
Yeah, and Clout's very, I think, for me, obviously the second best, but a bit of distance to, who I guess you could say Tanti was right behind him all weekend, but I think Clout's definitely that second rider. Couldn't really pick a third, but yeah, if you take the whoops out, I'd like to see, how close then they would be to Dino. But when you've got two sets of whoops, it's just, Dino's in the whoops and gone.
I was going to say, I was pretty shocked that we had two sets of whoops, but I loved it because that second short set, as much as it was a short set, it seemed to be the more dangerous of the two.
Yeah, I think we did hear that from someone too. They said that the whoops before the start line were worse than the ones on the other side of the track. So, yeah, to have the two in there, it switches it up a bit. But, he's just on another level, like we've said plenty of times.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Now, SX2 side of things, it was good to see. We talked about last week on the show who would bounce back, and we said Ryder Kingsford needed to be the one in the SX2, and maybe like Wilson Todd as well. Ryder Kingsford definitely bounced back in Cronulla, going 1-2, just missing out on the overall for the night to his teammate Lux Turner. But Lux Turner has a confidence that is just growing enormously at the moment, Benny. The confidence is just like coming out of him in all areas, because when you talk to him, he's just got this grin, he's got this look in the eye. You can tell he's feeling it.
Yeah, if you haven't seen post-race interviews, you need to check that out or listen to them. But yeah, the body language and just the way that he is on track, making it known that he's coming behind someone or whatever else. Just which is sort of what we expected, but to see it actually in person and the way it's panning out, he's definitely knows he's on top.
Yeah, no, he's just walking around like a man that's just grew 6 inches easily. It's he's got a confidence that's unreal at the moment. But yeah, it was nice to see Kingsford bounce back in that one in terms of getting the first moto win. But that second moto, as soon as Turner passed him, it was like he just dropped anchor. He had nothing left. We didn't end up getting to talk to him. We were trying to grab him for a post-race interview there, but it didn't look like he was able to close out those last 2 laps. Was basically about where it all happened. So, yeah, not sure what happened there, whether he just got tired. He had a good run there going for the first 1 3/4. But, yeah, he needs just a tiny bit more to Ryder Kingsford.
Yeah, and he probably put a lot of effort into getting that first main event win, which probably took a little bit out of him for that second one. So, he'll go back and train and fix, try and fix some things that probably wants to fix up, and then come Melbourne, it'll be interesting to see how that goes with the added likes of Cole Davies in there as well.
Yeah, that class is going to be awesome to see what happens, because if Turner with this confidence and he's going up against like Cole Davies, who should be pretty damn good. Curious to see how that plays out. But the other part of this for Kingsford, if he did get a little bit tired in terms of fitness aspect, I don't think Melbourne's going to help him any, because I would say it's going to be a good, 5 to 10 seconds a lap longer than what we were seeing in Cronulla and what we've seen at Redcliffe. So, yeah, potentially this is not a great aspect for him. Maybe it was just purely he got overcooked from that first one in terms of just trying to run at front and keeping in front of his teammate. But yeah, let's see what happens next round. He's got a couple of weeks to work on a few things. Hopefully he can build on that. I mentioned Wilson Todd needed to bounce back. I think he bounced further down in Cronulla, Benny. He had not great results.
Yeah, I think he was down in at the end of that first rhythm on the first lap, and pretty much got overlapped by the end of that first main event. And then I don't think he did the greatest in that second main event. So that's not what he would have been expecting or hoping for. But when you, like we sort of said, you jump from 450 back down to 250, it takes a bit to get going again, as we've seen with other riders. And when you come in and get mixed up and tangled with people, that doesn't help either. No,
it doesn't. I'd be curious to speak to him at Melbourne and see if we can, find out how he's feeling about things, because I dare say he's way more capable, and his speed is there. He's way more capable of better results, but for some reason he's just having some issues, crashes, bad starts. Is that just purely just getting used to the 250 again that he's not quite there for? I don't know, because I wonder if he's regretting the step back to the 250 or not. But maybe he's fine with it, but he hasn't really had any really good years in Supercross. He's always sort of found himself in these sorts of positions. So anyway, we'll see what happens. SX3, very interesting one from a few different aspects. Obviously, we're talking to Riley Burgess later in this show. He gets his first podium, but it's how he gets his first podium that's the interesting part for me, because basically, three riders go down in front of him not go down, but basically one goes down and two others stuff themselves up in the final corner, and he's able to sneak around the inside after basically pulling up on a dime at the end of the whoops, or even through the whoops. He was braking, I believe, to take the inside of the corner and steal third. So that was impressive in its first place, because it just shows how topsy-turvy this results can be for SX3 as these young kids are starting to learn Supercross skill. But then also the Cade Kingsford and Ryder Malinowski battle that went on at front, that was interesting. That was cool. Like, it wasn't quite the level of a Deegan takeout. They weren't trying to take each other out, but they were definitely cat and mousing it back and forward there for a bit.
Yeah, that was probably one of the best SX3 races I've watched, I think. And it had, everyone in the stadium going, everyone was running, like, riding the emotions of it.
They were invested, weren't
they? When Cade came up short a few times, a few laps in a row on the same jump, everyone would, take a breath and just wait for him to hit. And, that sort of let Ryder get away. But I think, to put on a show like that at such a young age, it just shows, how the sport's growing and the younger kids are, getting better and turning up ready to go.
Yeah, and I'm going to be a little bit rude here, but how's the balls on Malinowski for launching the wall into the whoops on that last lap as just an option to try and get away from Cade Kingsford? That took some cojones.
Yeah, and we didn't see anyone else do that all weekend. I think he did it in...
Yeah, he did in practice, right? But that was about it. So for him to know that he had that and then to try it at that moment of the main, like last lap, and I've got this guy on my butt, I'm going to try this, that's pretty ballsy.
Yeah, it didn't really look much quicker. If anything, it sort of was, the same, or if not a little bit slower. But yeah, to pull it off in those closing laps, like you said, you got to have the guts to do it.
Yeah, definitely. So no, that was very, very cool. Yeah, to go back and forth the way they did. And like that, like I said, that class, obviously those young kids, they're all trying to learn Supercross skills and they've got them to a degree. But when they get in that heated battle, maybe a bit of fatigue kicks in, we start seeing a few, little mistakes and crashes and stuff, and they're just not quite as polished as those SX2 and SX1 class riders. So it actually makes it really interesting to watch. But then, like the crashes they had and stuff that goes on, it's just a cool race to be sitting there watching. But the part that also then interests me, and now I didn't realize this, and Benny, you probably didn't either, when we did that interview with Malinowski and Cade Kingsford post-race, but when I saw the footage from Australian Supercross the next day, those two had a few words when they first were taking their helmets off when they got to the podium. So we didn't realize that at the time. They were both sort of a bit cagey about, how that result was when we were talking to them. I now know why.
Yeah, and we didn't see any of that. We were a bit far away from that. But then, when it came out online, I sent it in the group chat and you sort of can understand. But there wasn't really anything within it. It was a bit of cat and mouse. Wasn't that bad. But I'm surprised it sort of got that reaction. I think it was more Ryder than Cade. But, the fans love it. That's what they're all for it.
Well, it's going to make for a spicy next race, isn't it? But I think you got to go back. Like, I didn't see too much in it either. Yeah, they're battling back and forth and playing a little bit of silly buggers. But I think if you put yourself in a, 17-year-old's testosterone state in the middle of an event in front of 14,000 people where money and your next ride seems like the only thing that matters in life, I could see why they get a little bit spicy at the end and have a couple of words. I probably would have done similar at that age. Nowadays, I probably would have just told him that, you're a dumbass and walked away. But at that age and where this thing is in life for them and what it means to them, obviously it sparks them a bit quicker at that point.
Yeah, and I guess we were all that young at one stage, and like you said, we probably would have done the same thing. So, like I said, the fans draw on it, and if it's gone wild on social media, so that'll probably play into how it goes at Melbourne.
Yeah, look, I'm reminded of one of my very first ever sponsor in motorcycle racing, Mick Dyer Motorcycles. A shout out. It's no longer there, but if Mick for some reason hears this, g'day Mick. But I remember when I was in there doing some work with him one time, and it's just a little mechanic place. So a couple of blokes in there, or trade, working on grease ball sort of stuff. Bit rough around the edges, but he used to say to me at that point that I was young, dumb, and full of a certain liquid, So at that point, that's all that's going on, right? Like, that's what you're thinking about. Like, so, I could see that's what you're saying about it. That's what I was picturing. So, yeah, look, shout out to Mick Dyer. But yeah, that was, that's what comes to mind in that sort of scenario. So anyway, look, let's see what happens with those two. Next time they're on track, maybe they'll have a couple of digs at each other in qualifying or something in Melbourne, because that would just, if they did that, holy smoke, it might make the main event real interesting.
Yeah, I don't think though, with Cade having the red plate, as long as he comes second, I think he's pretty fine. I think he's got a big enough gap. So if he was going to do something, I'd say practice would probably be where it's at, or qualifying, wherever. I don't know from now if we will see anything in the race.
Yeah, I don't know. I also don't know. I heard, and I reminded too, that like we've had these these races have been like two moto formats so far, and they've been scored separately for championship points. But I believe the AusX Open is going to be a triple crown, and I don't know if they're then going to score each moto separately for the championship, or if it's a combined overall and it's just the overall goes to it. I'm not sure how it's going to work. Same as in Adelaide. So yeah, look, there's a bit of that to unpack just yet. We'll find that out probably the few days before. I probably could look at it a bit further and hopefully see, but they seem to change these things on a whim. But yeah, there's some things to play out just yet. But yeah, I'm here for the Malinowski Kingsford SX3 battle that's going to come on in Melbourne and Adelaide. So yeah, we'll see what plays out there. But look, overall, Cronulla I think was a pretty awesome weekend. Quick shout out to Blake Bohannon, got the job done again in the 85 class, and I could tell the moment that the 85s got on track that the track build was bigger, because those kids were trying to send the hell out of the triple and the finish line. They were off the back of the bikes, fully gassed up, and just making it. And in Redcliffe, they were doing it piss easy. So that was a sign that the track was bigger, was how the 85s struggled to get over these things. But yeah, Blake Bohannon on that Yamaha, he's killing it in the 85 class.
Yeah, and the size of the jumps, and like you said, the amount they were having to get the speed for on that size bike is it's pretty crazy. So, like I said before, my skill levels have never let me do anything like that. But those little kids, they're sending it.
Yeah, definitely. All right, now Benny, you've got an interesting point to bring up here. You've pointed out something. I'm going to let you take this one for your little news item here.
Yeah, so on the Friday, press day, we were both there. We know all the riders, or certain riders, have, in the US, in Australia, everywhere, have a drink sponsor, either Monster, Rockstar, Red Bull, whatever it may be.
Drink weird if you're Joe Schmoder.
Yeah. How often do you think a rider that is sponsored by a certain drink will drink a different energy drink, and how good does that look for him and his sponsor?
You wouldn't be suggesting that somebody turned up to a certain event with the wrong energy drink in hand, would you?
No, I'm not naming any names, but yes, one rider that is sponsored by one energy drink rocked up to something on Friday with a different energy drink. So it's that was a bit interesting to me, something different, something I hadn't seen, but it probably happens all the time. Who knows?
It possibly does, but I guess the other part of this is this is one of those sayings that my dad comes out with about footballers all the time, but they're only footballers, they're only professional sports players. They didn't get that sort of education about these sorts of things, so they might not have put one and one together and come up with two, so
Yeah, it was interesting. I thought, I'll just bring it up, see, maybe give people a laugh, get people thinking. I know people will be thinking when they're listening for sure, but yeah, it was just interesting to me to see that happen.
Yeah, well, look, if you want to find out which rider it was, you'll have to find Benny in the pits at Melbourne and get him to tell you in person, because he ain't telling you live on the air. So
there'll be no official record of that.
Exactly. Yeah. Can't have it recorded and put on the internet. That's too much. No. So look, if you want to find that one out, I'm sure he'll tell you in person, but he'll deny anything ever telling you if you bring it up anywhere else. So yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on Cronulla, Benny, or have we got all we got covered here?
I think we've got it all covered. Probably just going back to the event and the shopping mall and stuff like that. Not really much in there in the shopping mall for beforehand for anyone to if they needed to go in there. There's a Woolies and not many to eat lunch or anything, but. So that's probably one of the only downfalls. But apart from that, I think good event, plenty of access for the kids to sort of get close to the riders on the start gate. With the just being behind the fence and that. So I think the fan experience overall was. I think you'd be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, look, like I said, I wouldn't be disappointed if they went to there again. I just would hope that we could try and make some better access for the pits somehow, because it just sucked having to go across the road. But yeah, the rest of it wasn't bad. But I think the fact of the crowd attendance, obviously AME is going to look at that and be like, well, there's a good reason to go back. So let's see what happens. But I think we need to expand the series. So we either need to pick a bigger venue, because that crowd, I reckon if we had a bigger venue, we would have filled it even more so. So ticket sales is potential there. Or we've got to have a second Sydney event in a different Sydney location. Go back to a Newcastle and a Cronulla, or a Newcastle and a Wollongong, split them up, have them go on two different ends of the series. But yeah, look, I wouldn't be disappointed if we went to Cronulla again. Now that we know what it's like, you can be prepared. But yeah, hopefully we can find somewhere that the pits can be attached.
Yeah, it'd be a lot better if it was close. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Benny, let's let you get out of here. We're going to go to our interview with Ryder Burgess. I was going to say the wrong rider there. So
Riley Burgess. Riley,
Burgess.
not Ryder. Yeah.
Thanks for correcting me before you jumped out. Riley Burgess. So yeah, we'll get to his interview. So I'll let you disappear. Thanks for your time, mate.
No, that's all right. Thank you.
All right, let's switch this over to our video. So I'll go to, we got me in 2 spots here. That's great. All right, so just me. So, yeah. So, we're going to go to Riley Burgess. He's the number 275 in the SX3 class. Got his first podium. He rides for the Coastal Motorcycle Centre. He's on the KTM. Good kid. Got plenty of speed. Keep an eye on this kid. If you get a chance to watch him in person, the kid is fast. We'll talk about that here in just a sec. So, let me get this video cranking here, and we'll do our pre-recorded interview with Riley Burgess. All right, joining us this week on the AlwaysMoto podcast, he's recently got on the podium. He got a 3rd place in the SX3 class at Cronulla at the weekend just gone for the Australian Supercross series. He's riding a Coastal Motorcycles KTM. It's number 275 of Riley Burgess. How are we doing, Riley?
Yeah, doing pretty well. What about yourself?
Not too bad, mate. Appreciate you making some time for us. We've been getting some pretty good snaps of your technique the last few weeks at Supercross, mate. You're doing pretty good. It's been interesting to see, and very well done on the podium finish there, mate, at the end of Cronulla. I didn't think you were going to get that far up, and then you had one of the smartest moves of the night and stole yourself away onto the podium.
Yeah, definitely. No, that start that I got, it was terrible. I was like nearly last, and last lap, last corner past 3 people, and that was from 6th to 3rd, so not too bad.
Did you? I was telling. So I mentioned to you before we hit record that you're sponsored from Coastal KTM there, the Coastal Motorcycle Centre. Daniel, I was a friend of mine for years, and I was talking to him about it during the week, and I said I felt like you actually had a good vision and you had such a smart approach to that last section of track that I feel like you saw that all coming and you did exactly what you needed to do. Was that the case? Did you see what was happening? Were you looking that far in advance, or did you just purely get lucky and you decided to turn in tight on that last corner?
Yeah, well, I seen Jet Allsop go. We come into the whoops and I was a fair bit behind, and I seen Jet Allsop go out wide, and then I seen 2 others on the ground. So I was like, all right, I'm going to try the inside and see if this works. And I went across the finish line, looked to my left, and I said I was in front of Jet. And then I looked up at the board, and it still said I was in 6th. And then I looked down, I was like, oh. And then I looked back up, and it said 3rd. And, yeah, I was pretty stoked on it.
Yeah, mate, that's got to be, like I said, one of the smartest moves I've seen. And the fact that those couple of guys, I think there was a crash, and then those 2 guys sort of got together and held each other up in the corner. And I felt like you saw it all happening. You were obviously looking up to see what was going on. And, yeah, to pull up the bike on the exit of the whoops and stop dead set as far inside as you possibly could to turn that corner. And then I felt like you only even worried about where the timing loop was, because you sort of just didn't try to jump it or anything. You just rolled the finish there. It all worked out perfectly. So that was extremely clever from what I thought it was, at least watching in the stands at that point, mate.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because, like, the past Supercross rounds, all the timing loops have been at the bottom of the upper end, but all I thought was I have to get to the bottom first. I got there and, yeah, come away with 3rd.
So is that your first podium in a Supercross race, mate?
Yeah, that's my first podium.
Yeah, nice work. I feel like this is the first of many, because when we spoke after Redcliffe, you had some serious speed coming through the pack there. Just things didn't play out right. You ended up having a crash. I think that was on the Saturday night. And then on the Sunday night, you got caught up in a couple of other people's accidents. So I feel like this is going to be the first of many. You just got to put a couple of other pieces together. And obviously that's what the SX3 class is about. You're learning how to race Supercross, right?
Yeah, definitely. Redcliffe, I was fast all night, both nights, second fastest both nights. And just 2 crashes on the first night and then 1 crash on the second night really cost me some valuable points and positions. And then, yeah, just need to work on my starts. Other than that, pretty good.
I don't know about work on your starts, mate. Obviously, you missed it in the main event, but I got a pretty good shot of you getting that whole shot in the heat race. Like, you had that one dialed.
Yeah, no, that heat race start was sick. And then I went out for the practice lap start, and my start was good again. I was like, come on, can we go 3 from 3? And nah, I didn't get it. I got a terrible start.
Yeah, look, it happens. Obviously, not everything goes to plan off the start grates, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. But look, I think you're starting to piece things together nicely, and the fact of the way you got that podium is what impressed me. But I saw your speed through the other night there in Redcliffe, and I've actually seen your speed a little bit more throughout the season. I was commentating on the state titles this year, and I got to see some of your races there across the motocross titles, and apart from a couple of issues there too, I feel like one of those, it was Dubbo, wasn't it, that you had the subframe issue. But apart from that, like, you had some serious speed at times in those events as well.
Yeah, definitely. I have some serious speed, but just obviously got to stay on the bike, got to keep it on 2 wheels, and I should be all right.
Do you feel like, how old are you, by the way, Riley? How old are you?
I've just turned 17.
Yeah, right. Okay. So my point with asking that was I was about to say, because you are a bit of a thin build at this point, and I was wondering if you were past that point of like still going to fill out a little bit, maybe get a bit more muscle in you, because I feel like the bigger bike at the moment, obviously on the 250, I feel like at times you just don't have the strength to hold it down, and maybe that's just in purely size and youth that you just haven't progressed enough, and it's coming around shortly, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely not the biggest out there, but been really trying to work on my strength and stuff this year. And yeah.
So are you training much then, or what do you do in like are you still schooling? Are you out of school? Are you working? How's the training and everything fitting into this? Obviously, you're starting to probably build up more of that, getting to the point where you're going to be out working on or whatever, chasing the dream of motocross. Where are things up to in life for you, mate? What are you doing outside of the senior at the Supercross on the weekends?
I just work with Dad 4 days a week. And then just over afternoon, I normally go out in the gym either, or I go running, or I go for a cycle. But other than that, just working 4 days a week. Then normally sometimes try and ride on a Tuesday, and then obviously I ride on a Friday because that's the day that I get off.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, not much.
Yeah, right. So what's Dad do? What are you working with him in? What field?
Dad does carpentry, and we have a couple other boys that work with us, so it's not too bad. They keep me going.
Yeah, right. So you're doing carpentry trade then?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, good. Good to see that you are applying the skills elsewhere too, not just going to end up with nothing after all this motocross is done, sort of thing. So yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, definitely.
But it doesn't leave you much time. Like, obviously, if you're working 4 days a week, you're probably doing big hours on those days anyway to try and, make as much as you can. But yeah, so the training and stuff, is anyone helping you out, or is this all just purely what you've learnt, maybe just through some schooling stuff or, training with other sports along the way? Where are you up to with that side of things?
So I have a guy named Briggsy, 259 Coaching. He helps out a little bit. He comes out sometimes. And then I also have Luke Davis. He's been coming to all the races. He's been helping me out a lot this year, just with on and off the bike stuff. So yeah, I appreciate it. And a little bit of Lyndon Heffernan, who's been helping out just these past couple of months.
Yeah, nice.
So, yeah,
you've got some handy people there in the background then, by the sounds of that. So you need that little bit of guidance at this point in your career to sort of help things get kicked in the right direction. So yeah, Hefo definitely. I know Luke a little bit, and know Briggsy very tiny bit just from being his track there, Central Coast side of things. I gather you've been there probably quite a few times as well to go training and whatnot. Is that a Supercross location for you that you're practicing on? Because there's not heaps of them around where you are, I gather, here in the Central Coast area.
No, Briggsy's is just a motocross track, but just for Supercross, Briggsy come out and build a Supercross track at mine. Very technical track, and I just train at my house. Yeah,
nice. That's handy to have a track in the backyard then too. So yeah, it's obviously working because you're getting around the track pretty nicely, like we just said before. So that's a good side of things. So where's this going to take you, Riley? What's your plans here? Have you got anything lined up for like next year in terms of any more support, or you planning on doing particular class? You're going to move up to MX2 here shortly. What's your plans?
Nah, so I've actually got no one really that has come up. Just racing MX3 class next year and SX3 class, obviously. Might do some Sunshine State rounds, and that's really it. Just mainly the big races.
Yeah, right. So, and I gather this will all be just like you and your dad hitting the races in the van sort of thing?
Well, there could be something with the Boyd's Moto surgery. Matt Boyd, he might jump on board because he's just got his new truck, and he might jump aboard and take her around our bikes, hopefully, and see what he does.
That'd be handy. I have seen Matt doing his little truck build. I was talking to him about it at one of the bike launches we're at recently, about showing me some photos. So that's a handy little outfit if he gets that all up and running. So that could help out a fair bit for you, make it a little bit easier in terms of transporting.
Yeah, the races aren't very close.
No, that is one aspect for our sport in this country, that you do have to do quite significant Ks to get to different rounds. So, yeah, it does cut into those work days at times too.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. So, what's on the cards here? You've got a couple of weeks off in the lead up to Melbourne. Is there anything other than what you just sort of went through, Melbourne, in terms of working between the weeks and getting some practice track laps in on your track there at home? Are you going to go and try and explore any other tracks and progress anywhere else?
Not really much is going to change. Might go out to Brock McCleary's. He has a Supercross track out there, not far from home. Might do a little bit there. And because it's daylight savings, have plenty of time in the afternoon to do all my training, so works out pretty good.
Yeah, nice. Have you done Melbourne before? I think you were saying before you've done some Supercross last year as well. Have you been in Marvel Stadium before? Because it's a pretty impressive little venue down there.
Yes, I have been in Marvel Stadium, and it's a very big venue.
Yeah, so did you get the Lawrence effect last year and get to roll out in front of that 40-odd thousand people? Because that's got to be quite a thrill for a young guy like yourself.
Well, actually, last year, during the week, it was like Tuesday or something, I was just training and broke my wrist, and I thought I could still race, so I went out for practice, and I couldn't race, so just obviously just watched the whole time, but got to meet the Lawrences and talk to a few other guys and watch racing.
So you missed out on actually rolling out onto the start line and having all that crowd there. Well, I dare say you're probably in for a similar effect this year, so you probably haven't missed out just yet. So that'll be quite the experience to try and learn from, trying to keep the nerves and everything in check when it comes time to that many people being in the stadium.
Yeah, definitely. I'm actually really excited for Melbourne after my performance at Cronulla. I'm really keen for round 4 and 5.
Do you think that bigger venue will help you out in terms of like your skill set, or do you think that a smaller track, more like what we had at Cronulla, being a little bit shorter and more technical, was more suited to you? What do you think is going to happen here for Melbourne?
I'm not really sure. My track's obviously a lot bigger than what Cronulla was, so if it's somewhat like my track, hopefully I go all right, but just got to see when we get to racing, I guess.
Do you like the big rhythms at the Supercross lanes, or do you have to take a second? I noticed when you're out on practice, at least early on Cronulla, that you sort of take your time to work into the track, but once you seem to have it, you're fine. So is there something to that for you about just taking a steady approach?
No, I just don't like hitting new rhythms. Once I hit it, I'm good, but yeah, when I start, like obviously I just follow someone off it and it's not too bad, so it gets pretty good.
Yeah, fair enough. No, it's I always look at some of those jumps and think to myself, like, yeah, I can jump it, but that first time that you would want to hit it, it's always like, it'd be nice just to know that I can actually do it and follow somebody who's always just, launching off it. Because I don't know why you guys jump these things every other week without problem, but that first time, there's always something about your first time hitting a jump that just gives you the, that little bit of a heart and mouth moment. And you're like, oh yeah, okay, I've cleared that now. I'm good to go. And it just seemed like watching you on Saturday morning, you were sort of doing that, just testing the waters in that first session a lot with some of the jumps there.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, once I hit it the first time, it's not too bad. But obviously, just going for it that first time, it's a little bit sketchy, but seemed to do all right.
Yeah, no, definitely. You definitely did it right. To make a podium in SX3 against those other two guys, Ryder Malinowski, Cade Kingsford, those two names aren't, they're no slouches. Those guys have, Cade has, national motocross title to his name. And Ryder Malinowski being the Futures champ, or the SMX Next, whatever they call it these days. It's got to be nice to put yourself next to that in terms of a, picture of presentation to potential sponsors there.
Yeah, it definitely was pretty cool. Like, at the time, it was, I didn't know. And then, yeah, it just felt so surreal.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, all good. Well, look, Riley, we appreciate you coming on the show and making some time for us. Hopefully we get to see a few more podiums this year and obviously building into things next year, maybe being a bit of a title threat there. But let's hope that we get some little bit of publicity, maybe show off some of these other sponsors that you've got as well. Actually, by the way, who else is supporting you?
I'd just like to thank Coastal, Atlantic, Boyd's Motor Surgery, Kelway Constructions, Antonio's Barber Code, Garage Doors by Design, JBJ Civil, Moto Mate, Power Clipping Engineering, 259 Coaching, Elite Earthworks, and Luke Davis.
Yeah, nice. Got a little list going on there. That's pretty good. I like that. Yeah, no, look, so yeah, appreciate you being on the show. Hopefully that list can grow and we can give them some exposure. But yeah, look, keen to see what you can do at the next couple of rounds, mate, because I think there's more in the tank for you.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on. But yeah, I'm actually really excited for Melbourne and Adelaide. Let's see what I can do.
Definitely. All right, mate, we'll catch you in Melbourne.
All right, thank you.
All right, we're back on the podcast, on the YouTube stream. Thanks to Riley Burgess there for joining us on the show. It was awesome to have his perspective, and he's definitely an up-and-coming star here. Like I said in that before and during the interview there with him, his speed, he's got some sneaky speed. Watching him on the motocross in the New South Wales State titles whilst we're doing the commentary for the YouTube stream there, he's very capable rider. Yeah, he's had some crashes along the way. Like I said, I think he's still getting that man strength coming in. He's only 17, fresh 17. He's got some developing to do. He has some potential behind him. So if you're a team manager out there thinking about it, put Riley Burgess' name in your list to watch, because I think you'll be impressed. I was at Redcliffe. I have been all motocross season. That potential that he's showing, he got that podium. Yeah, it was a little bit lucky in terms of the outcome with a couple of guys in front of him, but he was smart enough to not be in that way and make that move at the very end. Those are skills you want in a rider. So let's keep an eye on Riley Burgess over these next few weekends. Wouldn't be surprised we see him on the podium at both of these coming up. He's more than capable. So, yeah, look, appreciate having him on. All right, let's get towards the end of our show. What's coming up next? The upcoming events in the schedule. Obviously, we've got a little gap this weekend, but round 1 of World Supercross kicks off on November 8th in Argentina. The following weekend is round 2 of World Supercross. It's going to be November 15th in Canada. So they're doing a bit of travel time. And then that same weekend, there is Paris Supercross, November 15 and 16. So that's a 2-night event. You'll see the Lawrences, you'll see Cooper Webb. There's a few others heading there as well. I believe Tom Vial's debuting on a 450 there as well. So there's a few riders there. You can get the stream off one of their social pages. Unfortunately, whenever I've watched it, I've never actually found the English commentary on it. So hopefully there's an English commentary version again this year, but you have to check that one out to find it. Maybe we can give you that information if we can find it across the next week or so when it gets closer to the event. But for us in Australia, the next round of the Australian Supercross Championship is going to be the Oz X Open. We've said that before. It's going to be the Melbourne round. It's November 21. Marvel Stadium. It's our crown jewel of our Supercross series. So get there. We'll have the Lawrences. We've got a few people going to this one. So it's quite a good event to be a part of, to go and see. So let's check it out. Cole Davies will be there. That's going to be cool to see him in the 250 class. So yeah, plenty of action there. Then the following weekend, it's World Supercross Round 3, the 29th of November in the Gold Coast on the same night. And unfortunately, this is such a bummer, but the final round, the 5th round of the Australian Supercross Championship is on that same weekend in Adelaide. So unfortunately, there'll be a split of efforts here. We will be in the Gold Coast for that one. We have made that decision a long time ago when we got our approval early for them. So we are going to World Supercross. But yes, plenty of Supercross action here in November. There's a lot of racing if you want to watch it across all the different streaming platforms. If you can't be there in person, you've got plenty to watch. All right, that's it for another show. That's episode 165 of the AlwaysMoto podcast. Thanks for you guys and girls out there for listening and watching. If you're watching but not listening, check it out on your favorite podcast player. If you're listening but not watching, come over to YouTube. You can see occasionally our smiling faces. You can see Riley talking in person. You can see myself. You can see the contractor, Benny. Come over, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like it. We've got all of our post-race interviews, our press day interviews are going in video format now as well as audio formats. So make sure you're checking out both. We really need the subscribers over on YouTube. That's going to help us a lot. We're trying to get that to that point of monetization. We're close. We're getting very close, and that will make a big difference to us here at the AlwaysMoto network here. So make sure you support us. It's important. Subscribe, like, all that sort of good stuff. All right. Don't forget our social pages. Follow us on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, the Dickety Doc. That was just for you, the contractor. If your podcast app allows, leave us a rating. Don't forget to check out our written articles over on fullnoise.com.au. We've still got that Yamaha YZ450 introduction article up over there. Go and check it out. That's a good bike. But that's it. Thanks for another show for TechnicMotorsport.com, Duramoose, PivotPegs.com, Competitive Edge Performance, Pivot Pegs, Tech167 3D Printing. I said Pivot Pegs twice. I noticed. I picked it up. Thanks to the wife and kids for letting me get this done again.